Hey everyone, it's Dr. Danielle Clark. You're here with Onwards on the Win-Win Woman Network. Today I have my dear friend Kim Knieval here. She is a marketing badass. She is all about heart-centered communications and connecting others. She has been living a soul-centered life the last few years, leaning in, doing the hard work. And she is someone who lives and teaches and supports others in the Akashic records. Today, we're going to be talking all about inner knowing, getting that inner intuition, that inner wisdom, that inner love to live a more graceful, peaceful life. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for hanging out. We're going to be here live for Q&A after the show, so stick around if you can. If you're catching the replay, no worries. It's the same good information and the same good energy. If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Clark. I am a psychic medium, intuitive life coach, business professor, and so much more. And so it is. Hey, Kim, how are you?
Hi, Danielle. Thank you so much for having me on. This is truly a joy to go from mentor and teacher that you've been so many roles for me for so many years to be here with you today. So thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to see where the conversation leaves. Kim, I know the many roles that you carry in this life, but let's let everybody else know. Talk a little bit about all of the beautiful hats that you're wearing these days.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the role that's most important and my newest role, which is mom. And that's kind of informed the whole journey that I've been on for the past really 8 years where life has shifted. But my background is in corporate communications and PR. I've had the absolute honor of helping C-suite executives in companies like Under Armour, Microsoft, Old Navy, Morphe, which is a makeup company. I've had the honor of helping them tell their story. And while that was going on behind closed doors, I was having a soulful journey of my own. And I really kept these two paths separate until right before I got pregnant. And I really do believe that my son provoked me to come into the light and to start sharing this part of me, the soulful side that I love and adore so much, which is how my journey in the Akashic records began, which is the soulful journey that I'm practicing currently and what I'm offering to clients, friends, teachers, as I've been so lucky along the way.
Love it. I refer to it as coming out of the spiritual closet, right? Which is what I did myself a few years ago. I think that's one of the many reasons you and I connect is we have that left brain, right? Very analytical, results driven, and yet, we have that intuitive, heart-centered side. So good stuff. And congrats. I've had the chance to meet Cam. I can tell the world he is just perfect. And he Zoomed with me a few times and his love just radiates when we connect. So Kim, let's start with the Akashic records, because it's one of those terms where if you haven't heard it, you're like, what? Like Akashic, what records? What records? I'd love to hear your definition, your perspective of what the Akashic records are, where these records are found, like just the foundational stuff, and then we'll kind of, keep getting into it.
Perfect. That sounds wonderful. And I very much had the same reaction the first time that I read these words, Akashic records, or heard them verbally. It was like, what is that? So the Akashic records are a record of everything that your soul has ever touched, tasted, experienced, or been in relationship with since inception. So under this philosophy, we're able to tap into the journey of your soul. So dating back hundreds, thousands of years for some people, there are some people who've had multiple incarnations in multiple bodies. there's other souls who are newer to this earth side, as I like to say. And so the purpose and really why I think more people are coming into awareness around the Akashic records is it's just a means of tapping in of why your soul is here, what your soul might want to do in this lifetime. I find it has almost like a meditative quality to it. So if people are akin to practices like meditation, there's absolutely a meditative element to, you're going to almost tap into the energy. Everything that's there, but you can't see it all the time, but that energy plane that exists around all of us. So that's a little bit of a high level on the Akashic records. I'm happy to go any deeper if you have further questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I remember when you were considering studying the Akashic records too, because of that business background of yours, right? Like you like your structure, you like your frameworks. And I remember you saying, you know, Dr. Danielle, I'm on this soul path. Like, I know I'm hungry for inner knowing, intuition, greater insight, but I need to find something that has a little framework to it, right? It has a little 1, 2, 3 to it. Can you talk to me? I find this very, very enlightening and very calming to know there's a structure to the Akashic records. Can you talk a little bit about that side of them?
Yeah, absolutely. And dependent on who you run into the Akashic records through, there's different prayers, there's different schools of thought around this. The school of thought that I'll call it initiated into, which Danielle, you were the one who actually was the inception point for the records, because you introduced me to Circles of Wisdom, which is a great place to check out teachers and whatnot. But there is a prayer that we use to open the records. And what I really like about this is it's almost, when I say it's a meditative practice, it drops you into this state through the prayer of, we're going somewhere else. We're going somewhere that's a little bit tangential to this physical plane. So just to get really tactical with you, we say a prayer to open the records. We use your full legal name as the entry point into the records. And if your full legal name is to change for any reason, by marriage or otherwise, we change it in the prayer. We use what is ever, I like to say, whatever is on your passport is kind of the good gauge of what we'd use to open your records. And what's neat about that to me is it follows that just like your life is going to change in the physical plane if you change your name, same with your path energetically is shifting with all the different experiences that you have. And a question that I get often is, so under the principle of the Akashic records, is it that there's this life that we're just destined to live and we're trying to align with this higher path? And yes, and we have free will. And that's another thing that I really loved about this practice is we have the ability to shift, and we do shift our path by the choices that we're making every single day. I'm a big believer in accountability, in autonomy, and that's also something that really works nicely with this practice of, it's a way of tapping in to understand what's true to our soul, but we're ultimately going to impact our path through the actions that we take every single day. So it's a fun way to almost straddle both worlds. I found this practice of all the spiritual practices that I've studied really fun because it feels like a bit of a co-creation. You're co-creating from the perspective of your soul. You're taking the insights that we get, which we can explore career, relationships. We can explore location to live. We can explore past lives for the sake of, you know, I'm having this ailment in this lifetime. It doesn't make sense. Is there something that's impacted me in the past? And we take the insights and bring them into our life today. So this is absolutely about how can we co-create. I love that word, co-creating, of going inside to get the insights and the wisdom, but then you ultimately decide your path. And that's where the free will comes into play.
Very empowering. Yes, I've had a few Akashic Records readings and one very special one that you recently did for me that I want to talk about. But before there, I do want to echo the power in understanding past lives, because sometimes in this current life, we might bring forward a phobia, a quirk, a stuck relationship, something that we just can't make sense of, right? Like we cannot connect the dots in our mind. And what I've personally found is the Akashic records holding that wisdom of the past lives can help us understand maybe what we brought here forward from somewhere else to continue to play out, or for us to, finally, balance that karma or whatever it is that we needed to do. Now, before I talk about the reading that I got to sit into, as you sent me these beautiful voice notes, I just want to make sure people understand, while there are readers like yourself that will go into the Akashic records, for them to gain that perspective and that wisdom, people can go in for themselves if trained to do that. And I'd love to hear about this from you, because what I hear oftentimes from those who are on their intuitive journey is anytime I try to read myself, anytime I try to tap into my own inner knowing, I get blocked or I get stuck. How can the Akashic records help others expand their own inner knowing so they can do a better job reading their past lives and their current life today?
Yeah, I love this question. And something I say a lot is my ultimate goal is you come to me, we work together for the period of time that we're meant to. And I hope that you go on your own journey. I really believe that we all have all the tools that we need inside. And it's just a matter of connecting to that intention and to that awareness. And that said, you absolutely can access the Akashic records yourself. I'm a really big believer in education. I think, and on any kind of a spiritual journey, as you're tapping into energy that's unknown, I think it's powerful to have some guardrails and some structure. So I went through a certification process to be able to do this. I started with a book that guided. There's if you're interested to check out the Akashic records yourself, I highly recommend Dr. Linda Howe's books. She gives you the process and how you can move through tapping in yourself. But there is something about the community. I did a lot of community study groups. I did an independent study is ultimately how I got my certification. And I think there's really something powerful in just knowing what you're getting yourself into, to put it just to be straight about it. It's almost like knowing the best ways so that when you go in, you're not doubting yourself. I think it can be a little bit difficult the first time that information is coming through and you're like, is this the Akashic records or is this my mind that's playing tricks on me? And that's where Dr. Linda Howe's framework is really cool, is she actually breaks down like, this could be your intuition talking versus this is your records and what's coming through. The difference for me with the records to know, just to differentiate if you're in the records versus if it is your intuition, a lot of people talk about having almost like bodily sensations. For me, it's chills, like goosebumps is what I get. The first time I ever went into my records, the lights actually flickered across our house, which
That'll
was
do it.
Exactly.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Lovely sign right there, right? No doubting that.
Yes. So there's, you start paying attention. I think all like a spiritual journey or a spiritual practice and inner knowing practice, it starts with awareness. And that's what I think the prayer and dropping yourself in and having that structure and framework can really do for you.
Yeah, that's great. Very similar to me on the psychic mediumship side. Me reading for someone else, oftentimes feel it's a little bit clearer, a little bit more sure. If I want to connect with my dad, for an example, who's in heaven, I'm always like, Dad, is that you? Give me another sign. Is it really you? Right? But oftentimes if I settle in, I can usually have that clear sentience, right? The sparkly feeling on my cheek, or like you said, the chill, something that kind of helps me understand, am I in the zone or not? Right. Another thing I do that might be fun for those listening is when I go in psychically and trying to kind of figure out, am I in psychically or is this just me? I'll think about something that is sad, something that jars me, something that is very triggering. And when I'm in my psychic sense, it doesn't trigger me, right? Because I'm outside of myself. So I'll kind of think of that memory. And if all of a sudden, right, I feel the wells in my eyes, or I feel my heart, a little heavy, I'm like, okay, no, I'm not in my psychic sense. But if I can think of that memory and still just feel like a lightness, like this beautiful neutral, I know I'm in my zone. So that's a good takeaway for everyone today, because we're here talking about inner knowing, is being able to differentiate when you're in your higher self, right? Whether it's the records or working just intuitively. So I love that. All right, we need to talk about the reading, because again, thank you. So special. So for all of you listening, I am an auntie to a beautiful young lady, and it's a very complex situation, but her and I are estranged right now. So I haven't talked to my niece in about a year. And of course it hurts, right? Like my heart is heavy. If I had it my way, she'd be over here every night. But there was conflict and complexity, and we're not speaking. She's not speaking to me. And so my head, right, is like, this is a problem, right? Like, this is a problem. Like, Amy should be here, right? Like, Amy and I should be shopping right now. But my inner knowing, my heart is saying all is well. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. Everything is happening in perfect timing. A separation doesn't mean there's not love, right? And so I had you do the reading. I reached out to you, not even telling you all of this, just saying like, hey, there's a complex relationship with my niece and I. We haven't spoken. Tell me what you get. Tell me what the Akashic records can give me for healing. And what I wanted to share with everyone is exactly that. It was a beautiful validation of my inner knowing, that all is well, that everything is the way it should be, that my niece is going through some stuff, right? And she's conflicted. She wants to be with me, but she's also got her guard up, and she's got her stubbornness that she's, independently acting through, right? And your message was lovely, because it got me to rise above the muck, the daily of the situation. I'd love to hear from you, Kim. What did it feel like doing that reading for me? What do you feel was the sole takeaway of that reading?
Yeah. I just want to honor you for even, I think exploring these topics are tricky and they're difficult. It's a lot easier to turn our head and say like, everything is fine. And it's harder, I say, to live in courage and to live in truth and to honor your intuition. So I just want to start by honoring you. And I want to take one step back, because I have pivoted my offering since I became a mom. So when Dr. Danielle is talking about a recorded message, a lot of practitioners that you'll come across are going to do, like sit with you either virtually or in person and do an hour or so reading. And you're almost having a back and forth dialogue. This is part of the transition of me becoming a mom. I wanted to honor the calling that I'm having to be with my son as much as possible. And time is a currency that's difficult for me right now. So I've pivoted my offering to do these recorded messages. So I have people submit their full legal name and a question or up to three that they're wanting to explore. With that, I get permission to open your records. And from there, I send you a message that you can digest on your own time, in your own space, whenever it feels right for you. And
it was fantastic. I was in bed in my PJs. I loved it.
So, and I think there's something really sweet too in this recorded format, because I'm able to stay very clear and almost like, yes, the human part of me does not try to give you anything more than what is actually coming through. So unsurprisingly, being in your records, Dr. Danielle, I can feel the joy. I can feel the connectedness. I felt just your intuitive essence that you so are. And I like to say I'm not a fortune teller. When I'm reading a relationship between people, I'm not reading the other person's records, but what I can feel is the energy between the two parties. Something interesting that I really pay attention to is I get called to do readings in different places. So it might be in an outdoor environment, or maybe there's a conversation that's happening that ends up having an influence, a conversation outside of the recording that's influencing what's actually in the recording. Something fascinating to me is the recording actually got cut off in the middle of doing it for you, which I'd never experienced this previously. And what I shared with you before we got on is I felt like I physically got blocked from from conveying the message that was really meant to be there. And that ended up being a part of the reading. And so it's what this has taught me, and really tying it to your message specifically, is to hone in on and pay attention to what's happening. I'm not someone that believes in coincidence. I had plenty of goosebumps the entire time. I felt different types of energies that were coming around us. And ultimately there was this message of you focusing on your own personal practice as a means of healing this relationship. And I love that word validation that you used. Validation is something I hear often from people. I like to say, I'm not going to tell you something you probably don't already know, but it might be the thing that you don't want to hear.
Yes.
It's just bringing awareness to that. It's like, what are you not looking at? I kind of say that with like a little bit of a wink and a smile. What are you not looking at with love?
Kim, I love it. I love it. Thank you again for the reading. The voice notes really work for me. There's something intimate about not having to show up on a Zoom call or, go to an office. So I think you have a beautiful, unique offering where people can enjoy the recording in their own space. They can re-listen. It hit the spot. So we're here talking about inner knowing. I want to now go back because here you are talking Akashic records, supporting others through their journey. And as you mentioned early on, like this always hasn't been you, which I think is the funnest part of all this, right? Where we're before learning the Akashic records, did you start understanding your own inner wisdom? What books, what practices, what aha moments for those listening? They're like, hey, like I want some breadcrumbs, right? To get to a point where I'm whole so that I can better support me, my family, my journey, and maybe even others like you've expanded to.
I love that word breadcrumbs, and breadcrumbs and signs are always there and all around us. I think I've said this multiple times, but it's really about tuning in and paying attention to and giving intention to the breadcrumbs and signs that you're feeling all around you. When I look back, I can say easily I was a super intuitive kid. I was always kind of cast as like, you have a lot of feelings, which was deemed not a good thing, that has ended up to be my superpower. And so that's something that I say I like to share for the sake of, if you have a kid who has a lot of feelings or, is really sensitive, please pay attention to and nurture that. That's my PSA that I'll put out. Because it's taken me a while to come on my journey to understand like, oh, I just need to know how to work with this. I can see looking back, my career in communications was so perfect for me because it allowed me this opportunity to work with people one-on-one to really get to know what they were about, what like their story was to tell, what they were trying to convey to the world, what felt intuitive to them versus what did not. And so I went through this cycle of, I call it almost living someone else's story and hoping for a different outcome with I was progressing in my career very quickly, moving up the ranks, going to different companies and doing similar things and hoping for a different outcome. It was like, wait, maybe I just don't like to be in the makeup industry. Maybe I just don't like to be in the retail industry.
Yeah.
And it kind of all came to a head when I got certified as a yoga teacher, and every time I hit my mat, tears It just tears.
Yeah.
And so here starts this spiritual journey where I'm trying to make sense of why aren't these things lining up? So it started with being devoted to yoga and having a practice that you're connected to,
Love that.
journaling as well. People talk about journaling all the time. I think the power there is no one's lying between the pages and what you're putting down on the pages. I think being radically honest with yourself is essential, and it's low stakes. No one ever has to read what you put down on paper. And I took a little bit of a sideways from my story, but ultimately what happened is the pandemic hit. I simultaneously had landed what I thought was my dream job, simultaneously had just gotten engaged, and I was miserable. All intents and purposes, all my big dreams were coming to fruition, and I was miserable. And it was there that I really understood I'm living someone else's story with this career that I'm pursuing. I'm holding on to this ideal. I think it was really like 26-year-old me that was behind the wheel when I was 32. I was not 26 years old anymore. I had all the influence of all the mentors and bosses of like, you can climb, you can get to this high level.
Sure.
And that's where I started to really understand inner knowing. My body physically did not allow me to continue down that path. And it's when I found the Akashic records and where I really started to tune in. And what I hope to give people now is just awareness of what are the stories that you're hanging on to that aren't yours.
Oh,
Either like stories that other people have imparted upon you. It might be a past life story. It might be, there's so many inputs today. I think being disciplined to what we're taking in and having these practices like the journaling, like the meditation, like the yoga, whatever feels right for you, but being clear about what is mine to own and what do I want to own versus like, what is the story that's playing out? So
yes.
That's how I use the records, and I hope to be of service to others in the records. And where I think people can really start exploring is to pay attention to what do I actually feel about this situation? What is actually true for me? How does it feel when I'm in the boardroom? How does it feel when I get the big promotion? For me, I cried. On multiple occasions, I got a big promotion and there were tears. Those things don't really go hand in hand with one another, but that's the breadcrumbs and the signs and paying attention.
It's listening and taking action, right? And I think, in the years that I've watched you evolve and shift and strip those limiting beliefs, it is that inner knowing, but it's also the doing, right? It's like that internal, and you've got to take some action, right? Like you need to be aware enough to hear and feel and see those breadcrumbs. And then you need to make some changes, right? If the job's not aligned, right? If the friendship's not aligned, if the limiting belief is holding you back. And I think that's really, from my eyes, one of the secret sauces that just has you sparkling so bright lately, because you really have not only seen, but then done, right? It's like this continuous movement. So I'll send you lots of kudos and love and recognition, because it's not easy, right? We see things often like, oh, that doesn't feel good. But yet, like you said, we live the old story, and yet we keep doing it anyways, because, well, I should be happy about the promotion, or everybody's telling me this, or I don't want to let mom down, right?
Yes,
Whatever
totally.
that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kudos to you for just letting yourself reinvent over and over again. And I think that is a beautiful closing, is just inviting those who are in this space with us today. You're here for inner wisdom. You're here for more joy. Listen and honor, right? It's like this in and then out, in and then out. Do you have any closing words, Kim, that you'd like to share with the Onwards community today?
Thank you for having me. I can very much feel the energy of the community. So it's just a joy and an honor to be here. My last kind of parting, we're in a time of really big transition, I think, as a world and as a society. And I think that's when we often will look outwards the most of, I need direction or guidance, or that's the perfect time to turn in. So a lot of my work is really central to transitions and big milestones, because I think these are really places to anchor into your inner knowing, to pull those insights out and start living them. And I would just really encourage in this moment in time that it's a beautifully ripe opportunity to do so. And the momentum comes in your favor once you have that bravery to look in the first time. It's not always, the dark isn't quite as scary once you turn the light on. So don't be afraid to turn the light on of what's going on inside, because I bet if there's a story that you're hanging on to, that there might be a story that is more perfect for you in your dream life, and whatever that means to you.
Kim, I adore that. And you're so spot on, right? Like, talk about that quick, yikes, I'm not in my power if ... How many times do we do that? Jane, what do you think I should do? Max, what do you think I should do? Henry, what do you think I should do? Like, ding, ding, ding. I love that you mentioned that, right? Like, if you notice you're going continuously outside, it's a perfect reminder of saying, okay, this is a good opportunity to, like you mentioned earlier, journal, meditate, right? Connect with your soul. I think that's such a good one. And you're right. The dark is only scary if we let it accumulate the dust and the spiders and the monsters inside, right? Like, if we put on the light, accept that there might be some stuff in there, but we're continuously in there. It's all good. So thank you, Kim. People who want to reach you, share your website for me, please.
Yeah, it's kimknieval.com. And Knieval, like evil Knievel, I like to say there is a relation in our family. I say that all the time.
I'd be saying it like every 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the best place to reach me. I'm transparently not huge on social media. I've kind of found like the right people will find me. And if we connect, it's lovely and beautiful. So my website is really the best place that you can find me.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, your wisdom, your big, beautiful smile and glow. For all of those who are here live, stick around. For those of you who are catching the replay, we're here with Onwards on the Win-Win Women Network every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Thank you so much, everyone. And just remember, it is the cracks in your heart that let the light shine through. And so it is.